A man had been chatting with this babe for over a month. She had been playing hard to get, but he stayed persistent. Finally, she agreed to go on a date with him. They set the time for 4 p.m. at a new, fancy restaurant in town that served both local and foreign dishes. He was determined to impress her, feed her well, and, hopefully, she'd return the favor later, in bed. From her pictures, he could tell she was busty, and let's be honest, he was obsessed with big melons. No shame in it. Those things did something to him that words couldn't fully express. He was ready to spend his life savings on this one. At exactly 4 p.m., he walked into the restaurant. It wasn't crowded, just a few people here and there. He wanted to pick a spot where he could watch her walk in. But then, he noticed someone waving at him from behind a muscular guy sitting alone. It was her. She was already seated. He was impressed. A curvy, punctual girl? Wife material. She was definitely a keeper. But, sadly, he was a player. He just wanted to hit and run. He approached her, expecting a hug, but she only stretched out her hand. Still playing hard to get till the very end. Girls like this are always the ones that end up becoming obsessed. He thought. Still, as a gentleman, he took her hand, kissed it softly, and sat down. The waiter brought the menu, and this babe didn't waste any time. She ordered 2 plates. He smiled, thinking one was for him, but she quickly corrected him. No, order your own. I eat a lot, she said, unfazed. He wasn't mad, though. He liked a woman with a healthy appetite. So, he placed his order. But before he could even finish his rice and chicken, she had already demolished her umla and yudu. Next, she moved on to jollof rice and plantain. He was stunned. You can eat he said, laughing. She simply smiled and waved the waiter over. Please bring white rice with stew and fresh fish. Ah. This girl can really eat. He thought. Well, she'd need her strength for what he had in mind later. After 2 solid hours of non-stop eating, she even ordered takeaway. He paid the bill, stood like a gentleman, and helped her with her chair. But as she stood, his eyes widened in shock. She was heavily pregnant. Jesus, he screamed, stumbling back. She looked at him, confused. What happened? What happened where? You're pregnant, he blurted out, voice shaky. She laughed lightly. Yes, I know. Is that why you shouted Jesus? Why won't I shout? You're heavily pregnant. She rolled her eyes. Is pregnancy a disease? His heart raced. Why didn't you tell me? She shrugged. You didn't ask. Ask? Who asks that on a date? So I should just sit down and say, are you pregnant? Really? That's a normal question men ask women they're just getting to know. He was dumbfounded. Well, she said, nonchalantly, I asked if you were married, didn't I? You could have asked if I was pregnant. He was speechless. Anyways, I'm exhausted. Me and baby need to get home. She said. He stared at her, then at the packs of food he had paid for. The urge to snatch the bags and run was strong. But before he could act, she turned and handed the takeaway to the muscular guy sitting nearby. Honey, please hold our food. I'm tired, she said. His mouth dropped open. Honey? Our food? He turned to the guy. Who is this wrestler? The man stood and spoke calmly. Bro, don't shout at my wife. Oh. Wife? She's your wife? His head was spinning. The woman smiled. You didn't ask. The man stood there, frozen in disbelief, as the couple walked away with the food he had paid for. Everyone in the restaurant was staring, some laughing quietly. He dragged his feet to his car, head bowed in shame. Just as he was about to drive off, there was a tap on his window. He turned. It was her again. Won't you drop us at home? We came early just to make sure we didn't keep you waiting. He looked at her from head to toe. Behind her stood wrestler Batista, smiling smugly. He wanted to scream, but he just gripped the steering wheel tighter. He started the car without saying a word. At least give us transport money for Uber, for the baby's sake, she added sweetly. He hissed, slammed his foot on the accelerator, and sped off into the night. They stood there laughing as he sped off. "CM," she said, shaking her head. He really thought he hit jackpot. Her husband chuckled. "Babe, you wicked-o. You know even pity am." "Pity? After all the nonsense he was saying in my DM? A beg, let's go home. Baby and I are tired." Still laughing, they turned and walked away.